Today, I'll equip you with the numbers you need to answer the single most important question your executive team are likely to ask you about employee engagement. Hello again. Welcome to episode 4 and the first of 2 videos in this Get Ready section of the video series. Now, wherever you sit in your organisation, whether you're a senior leader with full decision-making authority or a specialist who's being tasked with increasing employee engagement levels or even just an interested professional, you're going to need an answer to the one overarching important question when it comes to employee engagement. Why bother? If you don't know or can't articulate the benefits to the business, preferably using concrete, measurable numbers, then it's almost impossible to secure any investment of time, money or human resource to make it happen. So in today's video, I lay out some of the compelling evidence that tells you exactly why you and your organisation should and even must bother with employee engagement and enablement. The title for today's episode has been worded very carefully. We've said that we are making the case for employee engagement activities, not asking the question if there's a business case. And that's because we can now point to lots of research, both locally and globally, from renowned and trusted companies such as Gallup, the Hay Group, Towers Watson, PwC, the Studer Group, and many more. And what that research is telling us is that far from being touchy-feely or nice to have, that the links between motivated, committed employees on the one hand and compelling, commercial, impressive results on the other are just so many and so clear that it's just plain fact. Well, our starting point when it comes to the research is to identify the current state of the average workforce when it comes to employee engagement. Now, the organisation that's leading the way in terms of both global reach and expertise in this area is Gallup. Now, they reported in 2013 that globally, in the average workforce, only 13% of employees are engaged. 63% are not engaged, and a whopping 24% are in fact actively disengaged. More recently, in 2014, both Towers Watson and separately Aon Hewitt identified similar patterns. They had slightly different numbers at the top and bottom ends of the spectrum, but all 3 of these studies pointed to this large 60+% group in the middle of disengaged employees. And it's those people where I see that we have huge benefits to be gained by increasing engagement levels. So even if we don't retain those exact percentages, what all of this research is telling us is that in an average performing company, your engaged employees are outnumbered 2 to 1 by their actively disengaged cohorts. Now, if that's your company, it's going to make it very hard for you to retain your top talent and to increase your core business metrics. By contrast, the top performing companies have a very different ratio they can boast about. In this case, they have 9 engaged employees for every 1 actively disengaged employee. That's a very different ratio. It's turned it totally on its head. Can you imagine the impact that that has on customer service, on quality and safety numbers, on business growth, on employee morale? All of those core important metrics that you could care to find will be better off for having a large group of engaged employees. So now I'm going to spend a few minutes running through some of the findings from both the Engage for Success group in the UK and Gallup to give you some specifics around what impact those people are having in their business. As usual, you don't have to write these down. I've included all of these numbers and the appropriate links in the notes below here on YouTube. So when we compare these high-performing, highly engaged companies with their average counterparts, here are some of the things that we find. The first measure, and it's a very obvious one when you walk into a company, is that there's far less absenteeism, 37% lower absenteeism in a highly engaged company. Adding to that, improved retention of talent and employees. Depending on the type of industry, whether it's a high turnover or a low turnover type of company, you can expect between 25% less and 65% less employee turnover. And that's bound to have a huge commercial impact on the cost of employing replacements for those people. Loss of stock through theft and shrinkage is down by 28%, an impressive number, and health and safety incidents are almost halved. There's 48% less safety incidents in highly engaged companies. Quality is also improved with 41% less defects, if that's the type of industry that you're in. And one of the most impressive and important metrics that I have found is that customer satisfaction in these highly engaged organisations is 10% higher. Now that may not sound like a huge amount, but in a highly competitive environment, 10% head start over a competitor can be huge when it comes to customer satisfaction. In terms of productivity, there's 21% more productivity, and just to bring it home with some real hard commercial financial numbers, because that's the important stuff, the bottom line, the numbers to share there are that in highly engaged organisations, they have 2.5 times more revenue growth. And this is tracked over a number of years. It's not just a once-off spike or an anomaly. 2.5 times more revenue growth, up to double the net profit, and earnings per share of almost 150 times more than their average performing counterparts. Now, by anyone's standards, those are hugely impressive numbers. Numbers that I think are well worth putting the effort into attaining, and it's all for just putting effort and activity into making your people more motivated and commitment. And we'll find out as we go through this series that almost everything you can do in that regard is either cheap or totally free. So it's pretty much all upside without wanting to oversell it. There are lots of sources out there, and naturally enough, this information is subject to change over time. So for the purposes of this video, what I've done is found a cross-section of the most well-known and trustworthy sources that are available at this time. Remember, you can use the links below to go and find that research or those white papers if you want to dig in a bit more in depth, or if you want to download them to share among your colleagues in your organisation. Finally, if you have any employee engagement stories worth sharing, I'd love to see those in the comments below. I love hearing about those real life examples. That's it for this episode. We'll see you in video number 5, where we're going to identify the main mistakes that you'll need to avoid as you embark on your employee engagement journey. So I'll see you then.